And, you know, the big question in my mind, the thing that I'm wondering is, what is this going to do? Well, first of all, you know, for the discharge petition, will Thomas Massie and Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace and Ro Khanna and 221 other Democrats, all of those first names I gave you were Republicans, will this merry band, this little group of people who have gotten together and said, you know, we're going to slay the king, essentially, will they be able to pull it off? You know, there's an old saying, if you're going to attack the king, you better kill the king. Now, obviously, I'm not calling for violence against Donald Trump. My point is, if you take on somebody who is wealthy and powerful and you fail, then they eat you. They will destroy you. And, you know, many of these women have seen this before. They've been attacked. They've been doxxed. One talked about how her home was attacked. Her children have been attacked. She's been attacked. I mean, it's just the people who believe that Donald Trump is a demigod are, you know, fanatical. And many of them, you know, what brought them to this was the whole QAnon thing, arguing that this is Bill Clinton and the Democrats. It's interesting that Clinton was the only person who was named, the only, you know, rich and famous and powerful politician who was named this morning. Is that going to give this some juice? Is that going to propel it along? Is that going to move it along? I don't know. Is this a turning point? Is this the end of the Trump presidency? Don't know. I suspect it may be. You know, it's you just, as a political junkie my whole entire life, I've always wanted it to be policy that turns things, right? Oh, he did something stupid. He threw, you know, 13 million people off Medicare. And he's gutting Medicaid. And now in 6 states, if you're on Medicaid, before, you know, when your doctor prescribes something, you're going to have to go to a for-profit health insurance company that's going to tell you whether or not Medicare is going to pay the bill. In those 6 states, this is the test that is starting in January of next year. You know, it's the prelude to privatizing Medicare. So I would like to think that, you know, stuff like that. Or, you know, another $4 trillion in tax breaks for the billionaires among us. You know, I would like to think of stuff like that as the stuff that defines, that builds or destroys political careers. But, you know, think back to Gary Hart. Gary Hart was the John Kennedy of, you know, for a brief moment there. He was the guy. He was the attractive, young, thoughtful, progressive, idealistic. He was the guy who was going to take down, I forget who the Republican was that year, the Republican du jour. I forget which year it was Gary Hart was running, but he was the guy who was going to win. So what did the Republicans do? They hired Donna Rice. And they said, go seduce this guy, and we'll get a picture of you with him, and we're going to take him down. And one of the, you know, Gary Hart came on this program and talked about this. I always thought that Gary Hart was one of the great political minds of our era. I still do. But sex took him down. You know, there was a time when you could get away with that. John Kennedy apparently had the Secret Service smuggling women into the White House so that he could have sex with them. Bill Clinton was so impressed by that, he thought, well, gee, I can do that too. And, you know, it didn't work out so well for him. The times changed. That was kind of the Me Too of its time. And the Republicans really believed that the Starr report, this you know, as I recall, it was just a little short of 100 pages of extraordinary salacious detail of you know, descriptions of explicit sex acts between Bill Clinton and not just Monica Lewinsky, but also several other women. I mean, it was extraordinary how explicit this thing was. But this the Republicans actually thought the Starr report was going to be the end of Clinton. And it wasn't. People rallied around him. Now, by and large, I mean, and he continued to be a very popular figure and continues to this day to be a relatively popular figure. I think people are more willing to condemn him for his neoliberalism, for signing the 1996 Telecommunications Act, or signing in 1993 signing the NAFTA, the free trade agreement, than they are for getting it on with Monica, but or any of the other women that he was accused of having sex with. But the bottom line is that none of them were 13 years old. This is not something that Donald Trump can't pull a Bill Clinton here. He can't say, well, yeah, okay, I did have sex with that woman, but it was consensual. I mean, that's kind of been his story around Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, although he continues to deny that he ever had sex with either one of them, even though he gave them $130,000 each. But it's with a wink and a nod, and everybody knows that. He continues to deny that he raped or attacked or sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll. But now, I don't think this is going to play, saying this is a Democrat hoax. But we'll see. We'll see. What say you? Brian in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Brian, thanks for listening to KTRC. What's up?
Hey, morning, Tom. You know what this scandal's missing, if we compare it to other government scandals, to Watergate in particularly, is we need a John Dean, or we need a what was his name, Robert Colson?
Yeah.
Colson was in the Justice Department, I believe, and he was the one pointing...
It was Chuck Colson.
Woodward and Chuck Colson. And
yeah.
He was the one pointing Woodward and Bernstein in the right direction.
Oh, no, that was John Gray. Or maybe his first name wasn't John, but Gray was his last name. He was the assistant director of the FBI. He held the job that Dan Bongino holds right now.
Right. And then we had John Dean, who worked for Nixon, who came forward and told the truth.
That's right. He testified before Congress that he had told Nixon there's a cancer on the presidency. Yeah.
Right. But we have nobody today that's willing to come forward and tell the truth. And I would bet you there's at least a couple dozen people high up in American intelligence that know what happened and know what's gone on. Mm-hmm. And
in the Justice Department. And here's the one who I think is the wild card, Dan Bongino. Dan and I, for the better part of 2 or 3 years, I debated Dan Bongino at least once a month in person. He'd come into the studio. This is when I was in Washington, D.C. And, we got to know each other. I mean, we never became friends. I've never had a meal with him. But I think that we had a lot of respect for each other. And
but let me also say, can I say this?
And let me just finish this thought. I think that Dan is the guy who could turn this against Trump. And we haven't seen or heard a peep from him in weeks. And I think that they're threatening him. Back to you, Brian.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there are allies of Trump and others that are threatening witnesses with their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, Russian intelligence, Israeli intelligence, very extremely wealthy American businessmen. I mean, and I'd like to point out that we need to remember that when Trump was partying with Epstein in Manhattan, Trump was a Democrat, and he was hanging out with a lot of wealthy, powerful Democrats.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
I would bet there are no saints in the Democratic Party. I mean, there might be one or two, but I mean, look at Bob Menendez just got put in prison. Mm-hmm. I think that if this scandal were to rip wide open and we saw everything, I mean, there's going to be a lot of very embarrassed people.
Oh, there's going to be blood on the floor on both sides. Absolutely.
Right, and I think that's why Biden and Merrick Garland went easy on Trump. And they let this Epstein thing die down because they wanted to just die down and go away. And they didn't want American people to see how. I
don't think it's that they were covering up for Democrats. I mean, it's possible, Brian. I think that they thought that if we're nice, if we just move along, then we can get the nation's business done, and we won't be seen as vindictive. But I think that they were wrong.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.